Welcome to Monster Monday. So, tonight I'm going to be talking about Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters, which I think is an extremely overlooked film from 2013. I just don't feel like this one gets anywhere near enough talk, or I don't want to go with praise. I do really enjoy the film. After having rewatched it, I won't say love, but I really, really enjoy this. And I've never made this comparison before because I never thought about it until I watched this time around. But you know what it felt like to me? It felt like a film directed by Sam Raimi back in his like Army of Darkness days or even Spider-Man days. It feels very Raimi-esque. And I was kind of surprised by that a little bit, just by the creature design, the zaniness of certain things, the one-liners, the characters, stuff like that just felt very Raimi to me. But the director of this is actually the director of Dead Snow 1 and 2, which I think I've seen the first one, but I can't really remember. But they're really loved, so I'm going to definitely check both of those out back to back very soon because I really, really want to see how good of the like zombie comedies, Nazi zombie comedies, that is. But as I said, when I was going online and looking up these reviews, they were fucking outrageously praised. So looking forward to that. And then, of course, he also directed What Happened to Monday, starring Noomi Rapace 7 times, which is a Netflix original action thriller kind of movie that I absolutely love and I cannot recommend high enough. And I did not know that this guy directed all of those films, but you learn something new every day. This had a $50 million budget, and I thought that this bombed. I was like, this probably bombed. It didn't. It kind of bombed here, but overseas it did pretty damn well, and overall it made $226 million. So you're talking near almost 5 times back in return. So that's not bad. That's not bad. So I feel like this could have gotten a sequel with how well it did, at least overseas anyways. And they could have marketed it. But maybe because of the States not really loving this one as far as the box office revenue goes, maybe that's why I never got greenlit. But this is a fun film. This is a fun film across the board. I think a sequel directed by this guy could be even better. But yeah, this is kind of one of those movies that probably would be lumped in with something like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, which actually, when I was watching this, I was thinking about that movie, and I was like, that's something I need to really watch. I don't know if I actually sat down and watched that entire film or not. I put it on, but I don't remember paying full attention to it. And that's such a crazy fucking type of movie to exist in like a bigger budget. Like something Asylum type films, people would do that kind of shit. But that was like marketed and put in theaters and, almost like Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. Stuff like that where it's just like, wow, I love when things like that get made. Even, or Cowboys and Aliens or any of that kind of stuff where it's just like, wait, what's happening now? Just those titles and those premises that are like, kind of what the fuck, but what the fuck in a good way for me. Like, yeah, screw it, let's go for broke, let's get weird. And Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters is kind of along that same veins for me anyways. And this was produced by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay, which is really interesting as well, since obviously they worked on Anchorman together. I don't I was not expecting that either when I was watching the opening credits and saw their names pop up. I was like, holy shit. Especially since I just watched The Big Short the same day that I watched this. So that was kind of a weird coincidence. So let's get into the film itself. Now, this starts with their origin stories. And they are abandoned into the woods by their parents. Of course, this is much different than the story that we know from the Grimm's fairy tale, where these kids left breadcrumbs behind. Although, honestly, I don't know what the actual Grimm's fairy tale version of Hansel and Gretel is. Only the version that they told kids in America, not the more dark version of the story. But I would assume the breadcrumbs thing is like that's in there. I would assume. I don't know. I haven't read the actual like dark versions of these, but to my knowledge, it's that. So anyway, so they're abandoned out into the woods, and then there is the candy house. Okay, I said they find the witch's house really kind of quick off the bat, and when they get in there, this is another change. The witch is not inviting or, you know, trying to play them in any way. And of course, we're not going to prolong this story. We're going to get right to it. They walk in. The witch is a witch. She's scary. She's intimidating. She immediately abducts them and wants to feed them and fatten them up. They're not really, you know, going along with it. And she tries to push them into the fire. They fight back, and they push her ass into the fire because they are immune to magic from these witches, which is like their superpower. And these are some badass little kids. And I love this scene. I love how they throw her in there. And the little girl stabs the witch. Blood splatters all over her face. And she yells out to her in the oven. This little girl, blood sprayed all over her face. Is that hot enough for you, bitch? So we know what kind of movie we're getting into here. This is hard R-rated, which is fantastic. If a film like this, you're going to do it right. And I do have the unrated cut, which is like 10 minutes longer. It is, yes, 10 minutes longer, from 87 minutes to 97 minutes. Now, I do not know the difference, but I know that the Blu-ray is the unrated cut and the DVD is the theatrical cut. There's no, you know, opposite versions of either, so you can't get the theatrical on Blu-ray, at least in this set, maybe in a different set. But if you're going to pick this up, you do have both options, but I'm going to go with the unrated cut. I don't know if there's any changes, alternate endings, or anything like that. It doesn't appear that that's the truth. Usually it would say that on there. Includes an unrated cut with more witches, weapons, and action. So it would say if there was a alternate ending, so definitely not there. I only bring that up because of the 1408 director's cut or unrated cut that I hate because the ending is changed and I don't like it at all. Now we've got Jeremy Renner here, obviously, and Gemma Atherton. Is that how you say her name? Oh, she's such a babe. She's such a fucking babe, man. We definitely do not see this girl in enough movies. We got Famke Jensen in here as well. She plays like the head witch, who's another super babe. Love the creature design in this. Some of the witches do, I don't know, I'm not hugely fond of the look of some of them. Like, it looks almost a little too CG at times. But let me tell you something. So Derek Mears plays the like ogre. I think that's what he is. And he goes by the name of Edward. And the creature design, the practicals on him, everything is phenomenal. Just fucking phenomenal. The look of him is just some of the best I've seen. It's so realistic and so fucking cool looking. I don't think Edward gets anywhere near enough praise. So, and to think like 2013, trying to think of films that were coming out at that time. But if only they had something look like this in like Lord of the Rings, which came out in 2001, 2002, 2003. If they could have had something like this as opposed to the cave troll that we get in Fellowship. Now, this is a 12-year difference, so yeah, of course, but this thing looks unbelievable. And then if you go back to like 2001, you go to like Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and you've got the troll in the dungeon, and he looks like shit. And then you got the cave troll in the Mines of Moria attacking our Fellowship. He doesn't look very good either, right? I mean, for the time he does. But this fucking guy, now he's not giant on the scale where he has to be swinging shit around. He's 20 feet tall. I don't know. I know I'm kind of losing the plot here a little bit, but regardless, I think that Edward is just so fucking amazing looking, and I feel like any film should be striving to look that realistic with their fantasy characters. So I just can't say enough good about the way that character looks. And I also love that the witch in the beginning beats the fuck out of these kids. I mean, these are children and they're getting beaten hard. So really cool opening there. Then we flip to more, the modern time of this film. We move up years. And there is a milk bottle with kids that are missing drawn on it. You know how the old milk cartons were, had pictures of kids that were missing? Well, this one plays on that. And it's like an archaic version of that where there's hand-drawn pictures on milk bottles, which I think is great. Now, whether or not that was actually a thing, like, not this far back, not like Salem Witch Trial days, but I wonder when the first, like, missing kid on a milk bottle or a milk carton was a thing. I'd be curious on when that started, but they don't do that anymore. Not that I'm aware of, but that was always a thing. I think that made sense, kind of, because it was like it was something like everybody had and everyone looked at, especially kids, and maybe they'd be on the lookout for other kids. I don't know. Like, oh my God, I saw that kid yesterday. Kids notice kids more than adults do. So maybe that's why they put them on milk bottles, or milk cartons, because kids always ate cereal in the morning and they'd be looking at them. The whole family would. So I guess the milk thing makes sense. It's just such an interesting part of our history that I don't feel like is a thing anymore. I've never seen a missing kid on a milk carton. Although, that's a real depressing way to start breakfast. Like, oh, there's a child that's probably being raped and murdered right now. Awesome. Most important, depressing thing of the day. And let's see. So there's a woman who's accused of being a witch, and of course the town instantly, without any evidence at all, kind of reminds me of something that happened last month, where people have zero evidence, and they want to do something fucking insane. But regardless, moving on from that, these people are just screaming, burn her, burn the witch. Based on what? Based on what? You have zero evidence. None. Nothing. And you're still going to do this? Really? Are we still talking about this movie? I don't know. Regardless, it's insane to me. It's insane to me that people could be just so, like, clear-headed about something that they literally possess nothing concrete on. They're just like, it makes sense to me, so let's just risk my life and my freedom and this person's life, and it's fucking crazy to me. But yeah, anyway, Hansel and Gretel come and save the day from this beautiful woman, from being killed. And Hansel has, Renner kind of hams it up a little too much in this film, where he constantly, at least in the beginning, throws his big gun over his shoulder in this, like, kind of cool guy stance 7-8 times. I mean, it's done so, it's just like, and then it's like, dude, okay, we get it, you can put your gun on your shoulder. Like, it's done so much. It's kind of like the editor should have known better. The director, everybody should have known better. So yeah, not a great choice there. Done a little too much. The action in this movie is just pure fun, and that's exactly what it should be. With a film like this, it shouldn't take itself too seriously, but at the same time, you don't want to be too goofy. Like, you want to rein it in. You want to find that balance, and I feel like this film finds that balance pretty damn well, all things considered. There is now Famke's witch here. She attacks an entire group of people who are out hunting her, and it's pretty fucking violent. It's pretty gory. And there's one dude who's, like, pulled on all limbs and his head by, like, branches, very Raimi-esque. and he's just quartered. He's just like arms, legs, head, everything go off in a different direction, and there's a torso, and it just falls to the ground. It's just blood everywhere, and yeah, it's CG, but it's still pretty cool and still pretty graphic, and I love it. When Hansel is in the bar trying to pick up on bar wenches, which he thinks they're supposed to be easy, he takes his goblet and he rakes it through a beer trough. It's just a fucking like trough filled with beer right in the middle of the bar, and everyone just whoosh, glug glug glug. That's crazy. That's crazy. Is there like a price at the door, like all you can drink? Could you imagine? Could you imagine if there was a place like that? I mean, fuck COVID now, but everyone's just dipping there. But back then, nobody gave a fuck. Nobody had any idea of like sanitation or cleanliness or any worries or concerns about that. Nothing was really all that gross to people. It's just like, put the beer in a beer trough and we'll just like, could you imagine something like that existing today? Although we do have piss troughs essentially in the men's bathroom at like certain bars, sporting arenas. I've seen that at like Sun Stadium. I don't know if they have them anymore, but you used to just have one big trough. Every guy would just kind of like pack in and try to piss at it from any angle they could to get back to the game. Pretty funny. And then I like how when he's at the bar, he thinks he's gonna turn girls on by telling his really vile, disgusting hunting stories of killing witches barbarically, and he's like supposed to be getting these girls wet with these stories, and they're like, what the fuck? And he's like, what the hell? I thought that these girls were supposed to be easy. And it's like, you might want to change your pillow talk up a little bit. And then they get themselves a little fanboy who comes up and wants their autograph. And then one of the dudes that Famke sent back with a message, he comes back into the place. They all, like, Hansel knows he's going to explode, so he takes the kid and positions him in front of him because he's, using him as a blood shield, and he just explodes. And I love that people are so used to there being witches or that they're curses or something that they just it just explodes, and the fanboy kid just laughs, and everyone in the bar just kind of like goes back to what they're doing, like that didn't just happen. And it's pretty funny. And then the witches in this, they murder and chop up and eat a child to gain fire resistance because their bodies, of course, are compromised by fire. That's like the main way to kill them, as stated by Hansel and Gretel themselves, mostly Gretel. Hansel's more on the side of decapitation and cutting their hearts out or something. But Gretel, she says burn them, and burning, as we know, is supposedly the way to kill a witch because of stuff like the Salem witch trials. Anyway, they eat this kid to become fire resistant. It's not exactly working, but it works for a moment, so they know that they're on to something, and so now they need to complete their brew. They gotta get these kids from different months of the year in order to make this one thing, so they're basically invulnerable if they can pull this off. So they go back to town to snatch the last kid because they have 11 of the 12. And then Hansel and Gretel get themselves a little sidekick, not the fanboy, who does become their sidekick along with Edward at the end of the film, but they get another guy, which name I did not write down, but he's an older gentleman, and I really like this guy. I really like this guy a lot. They ask him if he's a good shot, and he says no. That's why he uses a shotgun, which I thought was pretty fucking funny. Although he does fire it from a pretty good distance with Gretel in the way, and he aims it pretty damn well. And it's like, that's not how a shotgun works. A shotgun spreads. So as soon as you shoot it, the closer you are, the more the spread pattern's going to be condensed, and the more damage it's going to do. The further it gets away, the more it spreads, and the less damage. And essentially, once it gets enough distance to it, it's not really going to do much, except for kind of like, maybe it's going to be a little hurty. It's not gonna really do a fuck ton. And from the distance he's at with them, I don't see the shotgun doing a ton. And if it did, it would hurt all of them. It would hurt her, all of it. So I thought that was kind of stupid. But I did like that he's like, oh, I'm not a good shot, so I use a shotgun. That's funny stuff. It's not the first time I've heard it, but I still like it. And then I think Hansel's in fight with a witch, and he actually kicks her in the vagina and slides her across the room. I thought that was pretty funny. But of course, her reaction to being kicked in the cunt is not the same as me being kicked in the balls. Although I would assume that doesn't feel very good for a girl to get kicked there, but from what I can tell, it's nowhere near the same pain. Not even slightly. It's insane how much that hurts. It really is fucking insane. Like, I got kicked in the balls once from behind when I was a kid. I remember I was in like 7th or 8th grade. I got kicked and it wasn't even that hard. His fucking toe just caught like the balls like right at the end of his kick, and it just like kind of tapped him, but tapped him pretty fucking hard. And within like 2 to 3 seconds, I immediately leaned over and just vomited everywhere. It's crazy how instantaneous the response is to being hit there. It's wild, man. It really is. But it's like that punishment of like, hey, man, this is the only like purpose you serve. You got to protect those things, so we're gonna punish you heavily if you damage them in any way, even mildly. But I ended up having 2 amazing kids, so he didn't fuck them up too bad. And then I skateboarded for years, and I fell on them a few times, but never enough to not make some kids. They might not be mine. They might not be mine. It's possible. You never know. And then the assistant helper sidekick guy, even though I did like the guy, he's short-lived in the film, quite literally. The witch makes him blow his own head off, which is pretty good. CG once again, but it's still pretty good. Kind of reminiscent of like the shotgun wound to the head in the Hills Have Eyes remake. I always like that close-up shot of someone blowing their head off. It's pretty wild. I don't know what would be my favorite. I mean, the go-to for everyone's, of course, Maniac, the 1981. But that's a shotgun to the head. That's probably the best. It's so brutal. It's just so realistic looking. Anyway, we get a little bit of TNA, just a little bit, from Renner's love interest, who ends up being a white witch in this movie. We'll get back to that. And Renner or Hansel, no. The bad guy in this, who's like the Russian dude from Armageddon, who's in like fucking everything. He's in the opening of John Wick 2. He's in John Wick 1 as well, but he's the opening where he's like telling everyone about Baba Yaga. And then that dude, Stormair? What the fuck is that guy's name? I know his name. I know the guy. I've seen him a million times. Anyways, this guy just keeps getting his nose brutalized by Gretel, which I thought was pretty funny. And they should have just kept playing on that. They should have upped that. It should have been like the that little statue in Home Alone that they just keep knocking over. Just make it a gag. Like, you just boom, everything keeps hitting him in the nose. I find that shit to be pretty funny. And then Edward comes to the rescue. They're about to rape Gretel, and he stops them, and he brutalizes everyone, just crushing heads, smashing bodies. It's great shit. And then we find out that their mom was a white witch, and because of that, in their birth, they are immune to witches' magic. And then their parents were murdered, but they put them out in the woods to protect them from the townsfolk that were coming to hang and to murder their parents. So they were to kill the kids for sure as well. So they had no choice but to push them out there. I feel like maybe you could have explained it just a little bit. That just make the kids feel like they're abandoned and on their own. But these are tough kids, man. These are much tougher kids than we have now. If I abandoned my kids out into the woods for even 10 minutes, they'd come back and they'd be dead. So much different times. And then the White Witch, who Hansel's banging, saves his life and is able to heal his wounds. And this is, yeah, I mean, this is when they find out that there is actually good witches and that their mother was one of those good witches. And then we get a huge gathering of witches, which we get a ton of really cool witch designs. There's like every kind of witch you could ever want in that sequence, and it's a very big, elaborate little sequence of witches all running around this way and that way, and a big fight sequence against them. So it's really cool to get to see, you know, makeup artists and you know, any kind of artists that worked on this just kind of go wild, let their imaginations go, and to see it all on the screen together is really neat. And that's why you have a $50 million budget. This movie feels like it uses the majority of it. Like, it's crazy when I watch a movie that has like $100 million budget and I'm just like, where the fuck is this budget? I don't see it being utilized at all. In this, $50 million is on the screen. I mean, most of it is up on the screen, which is great. That's what it should be used for. You know, and the only thing else it should be used for is paying the people who are involved in making the film fairly. And then they have this like turret gun where they put like holy water or whatever the hell, she blesses it with her witch powers, the White Witch, and then she just puts this turret gun, she's just cranking this thing, and these witches are just getting cut down right and left. I really like the use of the witch flying on the broom and like taking Hansel for a ride, and then he plants his feet and pulls it, and the broom comes out from her, and she's just riding it still without the broom. It's kind of like a cartoon joke, but then she just smashes into a tree. That's very cartoony, but it fits the film, and I really like the use of like witches flying on brooms in here. It adds to the fun of the film. And then there's a witch that's like glued back to back, almost like a Siamese twin, and they're fighting this way and that way, and one of them dies, and it's just kind of like hanging there as the other one continues to fight on, and it's been like half severed in the back, so it's like kind of half hanging there, dead. That's cool. I like that a lot. And then there's witch traps that they've put up, and there's like, you know, the line across the highway that decapitates the motorcycle riders in like 13 Game of Death or something. Kind of like that, but there's like a ton of them, like razor wire, and the witches just fly through it and just decapitates them and sends them off into many different pieces. That's great shit, and that's done by their little Fanboy. And then our fucking White Witch love interest for Hansel ends up dying, but she's like, go kick her ass, so she's very much in the fight till the very, very end. And they're taken back to the candy house, from which they kind of recognized they had these powers and decided to become witch hunters. So it starts here and it ends there. Poetic, right? They fight, and they end up defeating their enemy. And now they got a crew, and they're out there hunting witches and demons and whatever the hell else together. And Edward is now part of their crew and kicks in the fucking door like a madman, and Gretel comes in and she's fighting, and the bitch tries to run, and then Gretel's out there, or Hansel's out there to beat her down, break her, and murder her. And their new guns are super cool looking, and this is very much set up for a sequel, which I wish we would get. You know, you never say never. You never know. You never know. Shit comes out of nowhere sometimes, and you're like, what? They're making a sequel to that? It's been like 10 years. I didn't even think anybody cared about that movie anymore. So I'm never going to count this out 100%, because it is still, you know, on IMDb as in development. Whether or not we'll ever see that get off the ground, I'm going to go on the side of probably not, but you never know with this shit. So yeah, Hansel and Gretel, Witch Hunters. A lot of heavy metal inspired soundtrack and musical score in this, which I of course like. I think it fits the tone of the film. The film is gorgeous. The cinematography, the aesthetics, all of that stuff are top notch. So yet again, $50 million on the screen, used very wisely. I do feel like this film could have had a better climax to it with the final fight with the witch. Even some of the witches that are getting mowed down, I think they could have fought back. Maybe they could have brought like a ton of townspeople with them to fight the fight with them, so there could have been more mayhem, more carnage, more death, more blood, more guts, more gore, more fun. I think that would have maybe upped the film a little bit. So just a little bit more killing, just a little bit more carnage, I think would have really elevated this film. And maybe a little bit more interaction between Hansel and Gretel. I feel like they're separated a lot in the film, and I would have liked to see a little bit more dynamic interaction between them as brother and sister, because they do have some good chemistry going on here. It's just a little underdone. Not bad, just I feel like they could have explored it more. Now, these are all things that could be fixed and explored upon in the sequel had it ever been made, or if it ever does get made. So let's hope there's more carnage and more interaction between these two if we ever get that sequel. As I said, don't hold your breath. But man, this is a fun film. This is a film that most people saw the trailer for, saw the poster, and they were like, dumb. That's going to be dumb. It's an R-rated, hard R-rated, fun, Raimi-esque, adventure film. I mean, it's a really cool flick, and I wish it got talked more about. But here, I'm shining a little bit of a light on it from my tiny channel. I'm trying, but hopefully there's a lot of you out there that like this film. I hope I'm not, talking to a bunch of people that are like, this movie was shit. I don't really feel like that's the truth. I feel like the majority of people I talk to dig this film, but we shall see in the comments below. What'd you think? Would you want to see a sequel? What would you want to see in a sequel? Did you like this movie at all? Let me know. Adios.